Oh wow!
Mind blown. They overcooked.
We're all learning today.
Yeah, I didn't know they animated. That's even cooler. Only ET's is not. Nah, you're not late, Valko. So we're just kicking it off nice and slow, and then we're going to jump straight into it when everyone's here. Let's push out some pings. So thank you all for coming along. It's going to be fun. Mustaches are meta. That's the narrative I'm going to push, regardless. Awesome. We're starting 1 minute. Let's. Yeah, thanks everyone for jumping in. Okay, that pirate one is absolute class. I need to go through and find out which one I like most, and then I'm just gonna have to try and buy it when someone puts it on the market. I think it's gonna be easier for me to get the one I want.
Is that pirate one or 1 of 1? That has to be.
Surely. That looks so good.
Oh, it's not. Wow.
I'd take it even if it isn't a 1 of 1. That looks cool. Evening, Ipsage Leeski. Sorry if I said that wrong. Tier 1, but looks better than a 1 of 1.
Okay, that's got to be a 1 of 1 right there. That gas mask.
Yeah. I'm getting a. Oh, what's the character on League of Legends? Or is it Dota 2, which has got a massive gas mask? It's like a tank. That looks like. Yes. Looks sick.
Yeah, we're ready for the collab now. The arcane Axie collab.
Oh, that would be so good. Please make it happen. Cool. All right, should we jump into this then? So yeah, welcome everybody to Atia's Legacy MMA. Got Cruz on, and we got Shade, and essentially we're just gonna be like diving into playtest 1, but then also what's on the scope for like playtest 2. So I'm super excited for this as well to jump into it. So if you have any questions as normal, just pop them in the chat. But I'm gonna be kind of passing the reins over to Cruz to start off with, to kind of go over like playtest 1, what was expected, the results, and just essentially just dive into the community with what's coming for Atia's Legacy. So thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Jase. So playtest 1, which feels like both yesterday and also 9 years ago in dev world, was a pretty solid success. And if you've heard us talk about it a little bit after, we were super surprised as far as how good the uptake was, and how good the uptake and reception was, and how much people liked the art style, and people liked kind of the general direction of the core loop. And that was what we wanted to know. Like we talked a little bit before playtest 1 shipped, where it was like, we're going to ship this. This is our vertical slice of what the core loop looks like. This is going to be kind of your moment by moment in gameplay for the first 20, 30, 50 hours of your time here. Is this cool? Is this interesting? Is this boring? And we got a lot of good feedback. I'd like to think from the surveys, we're about 80% there. I think there exists a world where we were actually only 20% to a good spot, in which case we have to kind of do playtest 1, V2, a redo of a lot of the core systems on the underlying game. But that isn't the case. It seems like most people enjoyed kind of, the art and the vibes and the second by second gameplay, which is awesome. That being said, there's a lot of feedback as far as like, we wanted to make the combat a little bit more skill based. We want a little bit more features. We wanted to see kind of what the deeper progression systems look like. We wanted more trip. Everyone keeps knocking on my DMs being like, more trip, please. I just want all the trip everywhere. And we're taking that to heart. And we're going to make those kind of 20% improvements for playtest 2. But what playtest 1 has really unlocked is kind of our plan for this whole time, was that the next playtest, we want to test out what the elder game of Atia looks like. So again, playtest 1 is all about that early game core loop, what does that elder game, late game core loop look like? We know, and you guys all know from MMOs past, games are make or break based off of their end game. Like if the end game raids and dungeons and bosses and loops are garbage, then what was the point of grinding to level cap to get there? What was the point of inviting your friends or your whale friends to come play if there's not a lot of juice to squeeze at the end? One specific thing we've learned from Homeland and from Origins and from a lot of the games is we get really caught up in kind of the moment by moment gameplay, and we don't really design a lot of interesting things to do at the end. So we build a lot of cool games where you can farm and you can grind, but after 50, 100 hours, you're like, all right, this is kind of the same. And that's something we want to avoid. We want to make sure that we are capturing the fun and the most exciting things early and making sure that we validate that stuff first. So going from playtest 1 to playtest 2, we're looking to see what are the loops that we can build to validate that if you're a big whale or a big spender or a big grinder, that you're still having fun 100, 200, 1,000 hours in. One specific theme or motif or direction that we know we want to do is Jiho has been talking a lot about kind of warfare, social warfare, guild warfare, whether it be like guild wars or EVE Online or kind of these big PvP or these big raid experiences. We want to see how much we can capture that in a tight vertical slice for playtest 2, and then get your hands on it. One big thing from the survey is we were asking if people wanted kind of these incremental small improvements or kind of going for these big swings and validate big things all at once. Seems like from the survey respondents that it was actually kind of split. So we're gonna try to find some middle ground here where we're not gonna go back into a cave and figure out like the elder game loop and come back in 12 months, but at the same time we're not gonna ship out this kind of tchotchke raid mechanic in a month or two. So we're still deep in the ideation for what that looks like and specking out and scoping out exactly those details. But that's the theme and the goal of the next playtest. So one thing that we really obviously want to get from the community is what does that look like to everyone? We have some ideas, we have some plans, but really want to see like what does like risk to earn, skill to earn look like that can both get existing users excited, but also be something where people who have tuned out from Axie for a long time can be like, you know what, actually, I'm buying back in. This is actually kind of hype. I think this is going to drive a lot of volume. And then the art style and the combat and the lifestyle stim is going to get more users into the door. Yeah, so that is a long word vomit of what we're thinking about from playtest 1 to playtest 2, but that is we have a lot more exciting details to share later today if we want. But yeah, that's the shtick.
Awesome. Yeah, that's essentially what I'd love to understand is like you said from playtest 1, just identifying almost like what we were testing, and then also how that's going to be affecting like playtest 2, like you said. So do you mind going into a little bit of like what was successful about playtest 1, which really sets us up to test playtest 2?
Yeah, for sure. Like some of the big themes we obviously everyone really enjoyed about playtest 1 was the art style. We got a lot of good feedback that having a mobile first MMO is good to acquire a lot of users. Like obviously PC MMOs and desktop MMOs are all the rage, but no one's really trying interesting mobile first experiences, which was a good validation that we're like, hey, when we're trying to acquire lots of users, we don't necessarily just need, like, yes, we need like the high whales in the regular MMO land, but how do we even get like your moms and dads and your friends and guys on the street to come play this game? So that was a good validation that the art style and the accessibility is something interesting. Other things that we were really validated on was kind of just we had a pretty basic progression system, as you guys know, just like farm mobs for coins, gotcha to get some equipment. This was in lieu of like a larger crafting system. And we had a big question as far as like, is this game loop interesting enough to even sustain like a few hours, much less a few days of gameplay? And it seems like it's all right. Like it seems like it's doable. One thing we've talked a lot about internally is how much do we want to focus on kind of deep vertical progression grinded out systems versus interesting novel horizontal gameplay expressions. And playtest one has really proven that it's like actually, I think what we currently have from a vertical progression is good enough to test out to park it there, to leave it as it is, and go out into the wild and test out like, whoa, what is the big novel, innovative headliner mechanics can we build next? So those are some of the two things that I think were really good about playtest one. That's really informing our path forward.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's almost having that like we got that foundation kind of not like set in stone, but like it was a very very solid playtest, and I think the data
Yeah,
shows that, but
yeah,
also the community's like spirit essentially around the playtest. Like people were having fun and enjoyed it.
yeah. The community sentiment, also even just like the hard data, like retention, the hours played. Like we were always concerned was like, would people even spend more than 40 seconds on a game where you can't earn or there's no economy or live token loops? And that wasn't the case. Like retention was really strong. People that played a lot. People that engaged in these like pure free to play just for fun, just to get the rid of the meta vibes that they played and they retained. And that was really bullish for us, where hey, like if people are playing this hard right now, maybe we can scale this up.
It's nice. That makes sense. I think one of the cool things I really like to kind of like open up and ask the community a little bit was like out of the like the combat element, like that was a lot where the feedback was around. People wanted to see kind of like additional elements to combat, not necessarily like full new features, but changing that over and how that would affect kind of like our own Axies, like the ones we actually own, you know. So what can you go into a little bit about what you're thinking about that moving forward?
Yeah, we just kind of you have talked about this quite a bit as far as when we're talking about like with the war features and what we've learned from games like EVE Online, where it's like when people have, and one of the joys of NFTs is like when you have things that you own, the excitement comes from the potential of losing it. So what does that look like? We've always talked about a way to play risk to earn with your Axies and your in addition to like your equipment. So, I have my beloved Japanese Axie. We're going for a fight. Me and Shade, we're duking it out. If there's nothing on the line, it's of whatever 5 out of 10 excitement. But if there's a chance that my Axie can faint or my Axie can even get perish without get released, that takes up the emotional ownership and excitement to a 10. And really, it's like, all right, we from the get-go from the last year, we believed that like the end game elder game loop has risk to earn elements like that. And then really it's like, what does that look like? Are people willing to bet it all on their skills for their Axies? Is that tenable? Is that cool? Is that not cool? Is there like an appetite for that level of risk, or is there not? And those are some of the kind of the vibes we wanna test out within this next playtest.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's almost like a WoW versus hardcore WoW when it's like
Yeah,
in
100%.
right, right. Yeah, and I I enjoy that, but I'd be super interested to understand like what's everyone else's thoughts on kind of that and how you touched upon more like the end game. So what would you consider at the moment being like the vision when it comes to end game for Atia's Legacy? How do players actually interact, play the game? Because obviously we played with playtest one,
Mhm.
like a small it's kind of at the start, but it was also like you said, obviously it's very very like basic loop at the moment. But what for the end game for Atia's Legacy, what are we currently kind of thinking or exploring, and kind of we can back this back and forth with the community?
Yeah, and to be clear, like I want it to be just to. I know it's obvious, but the end game when I'm talking here is strictly for kind of like the end game for what this dungeon combat raid system is going to look like. When we also envision the end game, we're going to be building up a lot of other parallel systems at play. So it's again to your point, like not everyone plays hardcore mode. No one, not everyone plays like these Iron Man hyper sweaty modes. People just want to like play some MMOs, turn your brain off, click, 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 watch number go up, and those systems will be at play. Like we are going to build those out, but we know that like fishing and farming and like crafting, those are all kind of like table stakes. We're going to build them. We know everyone wants them. There's no specifically interesting things to learn when we build fishing. It's like, do people like fishing? It's like, yeah, they do. So when I'm talking about like what we want to validate with the end game, we're talking about kind of specifically uh this peak of the peak, sweat of the sweat gameplay. So if you extrapolate what we had with playtest one, it would be strictly just kind of like these um just these compete in the leaderboards for like max DPS or whatever, which we're gonna have for sure. And there's obviously a lot of room for that. But what goes even beyond that? So the end game would probably look something similar to that, but there's a deeper risk element and a deeper social element. We know a lot of people don't especially like playing socially or in parties or multiplayer on MMOs. A lot of people just kind of like solo lone wolfing it and doing your thing. So there's going to be space for that. But we know from a lot of experience from other games and other founders we've talked to, where it's like when you get these social warfare loops going, that's when that's kind of the pinnacle of the economy, where everyone else who's not engaged in that, we all contribute to the same economy. But that pinnacle gameplay of these like top 100, top 1,000 people duking it out on that bridge in the trailer, that can really fund everything that's going on in the game. So that's the end goal. Where can we get the top of the top people and anyone who's interested to go in, risk it all, try to go for the holy grail of items and of loot and of progression and of clout, and put their assets on the line, uh, whether that be like in like a PvP type mode, maybe it's like a PvPvE, larger kind of extraction type mechanic. Those are some of the areas that we would definitely want to explore and see if people get excited about that.
One of the biggest inspirations that we constantly return to is EVE Online, right? And if you're not familiar with EVE Online, it's this giant space exploration, space mining, space battling game, and the end game in it is maybe one of the most used examples in MMO end game situations, right? And we constantly return back to this. We do deep research on Eve Online, and basically the end game is it surrounds around space warfare, right? And it's structured, and the foundation of it is basically guilds. In Eve Online, they call it companies, but companies and guilds, they gather resources and build these massive ships, and these massive ships go to war with each other, and these massive spaceships, they get destroyed, right? And there's a massive risk because these spaceships cost a ton of resources and a lot of money, and then there's like guild mechanics at play, where like you want to recruit the best miners or the best spaceship flyers, or the best shooters, right, or whatever, for your guilds to go into these situations. And so we use that like internally. We talk about EVE Online a lot, and actually, like, isn't like the founder like Jiho's friend or something? I don't something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. He's in the DMs for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, that's whenever I think about Atia's Legacy Endgame, that's my mind constantly goes back to um, Eve Online, amongst a bunch of other great examples.
Yeah, and that's a really good example, Shade, for jumping in, where it's like this is where the Atia's legacy is truly part of the like Atia's legacy in Axie Infinity is 1-to-1, where it's like in Eve Online you have all of these roles and all of these functions, but they're all in the same game client. One thing that we have the joy of in Axie Infinity is that doesn't need to all persist in one game because of the blockchain, right? Like that's maybe a little too like whatever, but like it truly is because on App.Axie and like on Axie Core, we have all these experiences with your shared NFTs and your shared resources. So if you're someone that's like, I want to contribute to my guild, sweating it out and duking it out and risking bajillion-dollar Axie ships in Atia's legacy, but I ain't about that life. Maybe I'm gonna just do some farming, or I'm gonna just do my codex. I'm gonna grind it up for these things that contribute to my guild and contribute to the economy. And even though we're all playing different experiences and we're all doing different things with different kind of these target markets, we're all contributing and we're all playing together, which I think is very sick. And the community coordination aspect opens up a lot. Where it's like the big thing we don't want from Eve Online is I don't know, but I assume not a lot of people these days, but they're spending a lot and they're really hardcore about it, which is great and amazing and very successful, obviously. But can I think there's an opportunity for us to do something even a little bit more here, where there exists a chance to onboard way more people than just the people that are spreadsheet magicians, and to have meaningful gameplay in a larger ecosystem. So
Yeah.
that gets me excited.
What you said earlier is really important, and I want to emphasize it. What you said was, on Eve Online, the entire game experience happens on Eve Online, right? And for Axie Infinity, it will be a little bit different, right? We don't want people to think of Atia's Legacy as the equivalent to Eve Online. It's not, right? It's Axie Infinity is Eve Online, and what that means is there will be different experiences, different things, different professions that happen across different areas, right? Some of it you might go mine some materials from the codex. Maybe you're breeding or releasing Axies on app.axie on chain, for something that will, to build something in Atia's Legacy, right? Um, it won't all just take place in Atia's Legacy. It's not this contained game that is, an extension, or just this side independent thing, on built on top of Axie Infinity. It's all one giant thing, right? And I think that's like the big design principle that we're consciously thinking of as we go into Atia's Legacy, that we kind of didn't really embrace enough in the past games, right? Axie Core, App.Axie, Atia's Legacy, it should all be one giant thing, right? You might be able to play Atia's Legacy without ever opening the Atia's Legacy client, right? And how does that work? Well, you can go grind some stuff in Axie Core, build up your guild, contribute things to your guild, and then there are a bunch of whole other set of players in your guild who are actually in Atia's Legacy, fighting bosses and using the materials that you grinded in Axie Core or whatever, right? And so that giant profession, job ecosystem will really come together with all of that.
That makes a lot more sense. It's a lot deeper than just like. I think that's one of the most unique things about Axie Infinity. It is like Axie Core and uniting it across like it's not just one game, right? It's like actually connecting the IP, and I think the community's got some really good questions popping up. So I might just like deviate a little bit, but Spray Kotuk has asked like, how would Atia's Legacy kind of go into, or I'll quote it, how Atia's Legacy changed the economy, and does it have burn mechanisms in place in it? But we'll obviously pitch that into how does Atia's Legacy actually contribute into Axie Core, and with the kind of late game, like you said, dungeon-esque stuff, how does that lean into burn mechanics?
Yeah, really good points here. So kind of what we were talking about before, were the idea of the late game dungeons are kind of these risk to earn extraction like experiences where maybe I spend a bunch of AXS or RON or SLP or ETH or use whatever, some token to get the sickest loadout. I get the dopest Axie. I have the super golden gun with the super gold gun buddy and the whatever giant Rage of Bahamut summon elemental behind me. And then when we go into those big dungeons where the prize is the exclusive one of one Kataro Urgot skin or something of that of that grandeur, and I die because Shade goes through a naked run and no scopes me with his fist, and I die. I lose all of those things. Shade gets a chance to loot me, but there's going to be value lost that is going to be burned in the ecosystem, to however that may be from a functional technical perspective. But we think that one of my kind of core beliefs is when people are risking things in kind of this non-exciting, non-engaging environment where we've seen countless games where you kind of just like click a few buttons on this web browser and it's like, hey, do you want to wager all of your stuff? And you're like, yeah, like I guess it's fine. And then you just pull out the spreadsheet and you do the math and you see what the EV is looking like and you calculate your risk. And there's not a lot of excitement for that. And maybe specifically, not a lot of people would do that. There's not a lot of people that would engage in those high risk burning elements. But if it was like, yo, 1v1 me, we could risk it all. There's this level of emotional attachment to my skill. I feel like I got this edge. I can do it. Like I'm a bet on myself. And sometimes I win, but sometimes I lose. And I would argue that when you have more interesting skill-based mechanics like that, you have a higher chance of burning more things, which drive more economy movement than if you were just kind of doing this low-fi, low-spec engagement. So that's probably the biggest thing at an elder loop that I'd like, that I want. I think Atias can do a really good job in contributing to the overall Axie economy. And the other thing, just by the nature of being an MMO, we've talked about this before, where we've introduced a bunch of new monsters. We didn't ship the like materials and kind of the loot tables and the crafting system yet. But when that happens, there's a lot of opportunity for Origins had Moonshard and SLP crafting, which was very linear, and you roll your crafts. But now with an MMO, there's a lot more horizontal gameplay where the economy can get a lot more complex. To Shade's point, where it's like maybe, for example, to craft this ultimate Giga Sword, I need a lot of fish. But I also need a lot of mining ore, and I also need a lot of wolf pelts. But I can't do all of that by myself because those are all very specific, distinct gameplay things. Maybe we could even add like a stamina system where you functionally really can't do that, and you have to do coordination and player-driven trading. So those are the obvious things in addition to the end game extraction gameplay that I think really can juice the Axie economy. Because as an MMO, the world is our oyster with how much materials and items we want to have in the game. I'm going to try to have quicker answers, Jase, but there's a lot, a lot on my heart.
No, I think it helps provide more like depth to what we're thinking about. So I think the longer answers definitely help. I'll ask the clipper just to clip them up. That should be nice.
Yeah, I'm not TikTok friendly.
No, that makes sense. You mentioned obviously this focus on like extraction, and when it comes to like MMORPGs, like that, I personally, the chat might know some games that do it, but like I automatically think to almost like instance based, or even like RuneScape, where they've got like the wilderness, because that's kind of like extracting to the safe zone, so you don't lose everything that you've got. So what are you thinking when it comes to trying to make this gameplay experience? Like you said, you mentioned PvP and maybe PvPvE, but how are we going to like tie that all in together so it's a fun core like gameplay loop, but it's also got that like element, like you said, that risk, because that's when emotions get higher and you get more involved, and it's all skill based, so you can really like almost like bet on yourself to come out on top.
Yeah, there's obviously a bunch of different paths here. The one specific thing is we want to keep the scope of the next playtest sufficiently tight. So we're really thinking like, what's the minimum viable gameplay loop that makes this interesting? So obviously the obvious answer is you build a giant open world where there's like PK zones of various risk, and there's all these different like mechanics for like war and peace and blah blah blah. And we're looking into that. We're seeing what that costing looks like. We obviously are still committed to building a large open world, but we've seen a lot of MMO releases in the last few years where you build a large open world, but if the thing to do in them isn't very exciting, those giant open worlds become very empty very quickly, and that's something that's just a lot of work for something that feels pretty bad. So directionally, it's like, can we do a lot of these same emotive and economic gameplay elements in a smaller scale? Yeah, whether that's like a tighter instance, a dungeon, or a smaller sandbox in which you can do that. That's kind of what we're looking at right now. We want to really just be like, we know people like exploring open worlds. We know people like exploring different towns, but when people's NFTs and assets are on the line, like, are they willing to duke it out, or are they not? Are they just going to play the rest of the safe zone versions of the game? Uh, so that is something I really want to validate earlier than later, with both the Axie community and also kind of like when we're talking about kind of these high risk extraction gameplays, but then also people look at Atia's legacy and the Axie art style. It's like my mom's like, "Yo, that's really cute," and I'm like, "But are you willing to bet it all, mom? Like, are you gonna go all in?" And she's not. Like, Ray, she's not gonna engage in this loop at all. So we want to find a way that there's no kind of whatever cognitive dissonance as far as the theming goes, because again, the big thing for why T's legacy needs to exist is we want like cool mass market gameplay, right? Like, we need more people to come and explore and experience all the good that Axie has, while also having the sustainable economic loop. So yeah, we in short, we're probably gonna just validate with like a nice small box within Playtest too. See what our community thinks. See what Facebook and Twitter and the outside community is interested in, and then we'll take it from there.
I really like the idea of validating the end game, right? With this next playtest, because it will highly inform what all
Yeah.
the in between stuff is going to look like, right? So like for like you said earlier, like if playtest 2 we go on and build fishing or some economic model or some crafting and all this stuff that the table stakes that we know we have to have, right? But then we find out, the people don't like this very specific end game thing, then we might have to go back and change some of how the crafting works, some of the weapon
Yeah.
systems, some of the mini games and and things like that, right? And so by doing the end game and testing that and validating that and seeing if people like certain systems and mechanics, that will highly inform what playtest 3 and beyond is, what
Yeah.
those table stakes look like, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
so
a lot of sense.
yeah, go for it.
You go.
No,
You
yeah,
first, Chris.
no.
You first.
No. I can't. I could talk about this all day, and I do, and I get paid to do it. So I'm gonna take a.
He literally does talk about this all day.
Yeah. My kids are exhausted.
Your kids know a lot about Atia's legacy.
Yeah. They got opinions.
I want to be a fly on the wall. That's what I'd like to know, to see how your brain works and be like, okay, this. No, I was going to say, with that like late game player, I think it's almost showing this as well in like the traditional industry, right? Like, World of Warcraft and stuff takes so long to get to end game play, and there was that new game that came out which is called The Fellowship, which literally the whole game is late game. That makes sense. So it really helps us validate that before kind of over investing into something until we know it's like proven to be like fun, engaging, and successful for both players but the company as well. So yeah, I'm excited for it. So with playtest 2 then, just to like quickly, so in other words, just to catch everyone up, playtest 2 will be focused around what?
Yes, so we're focusing on a 1,000-hour gameplay loop for elder gamers. So yeah, Fellowship's a really good example where they're doing that, but then they're not going to build backwards. We want to find what that beautiful end state loop looks like, and then we'll work back from it. So to Shade's point, like, if we think this end game is sick, now it's like, all right, cool. Can we build out a crafting system that leads up to this thing, right? Like, all those other progression systems in MMOs is all kind of pieces that are part of this larger end game puzzle. And we want to make sure that what the final vision of the endgame puzzle looks like is sick, and the community likes it, and we think that people can get onboarded onto it. There exists a world where people are like, you know what? You're talking a lot about this like risk stuff. That's a little too sweaty. There's not actually that many people that are willing to gamble on themselves. And that'd be great. That's like a really perfect outcome for playtest 2. We're really glad we didn't build all the features that led up to it, and then we can kind of pivot. We can be like, all right, cool. What else should this endgame look like if not this risk to earn end loop? My gut, and obviously I'm biased, I don't think that'll be the case. I think we'll probably nail it, and really the outcome of playtest 2 is going to be kind of tweaking a lot of the mechanics and systems around it. But yeah, we still just want to be like, us as a community, as builders, are all in on this concept of like, this Eve Online high stakes end game environment.
Yeah,
What if
that makes
what if
sense.
what if the outcome of playtest 2 is wow, this is really cool and now we just want League of Legends or MOBA or something, you know?
Then we'll just call Riot and we'll see what we can do, get that Arcane collab going. And but yeah, like, so honestly, that's a very real world where it's like many people don't want an MMO. Like, you're allowed to have that opinion, and you're like, actually, I just want Dota. But Axie, uh, the joy of, again, this whole concept of Axie Core and like this infinite experiences is we're not like tied or married to any specific interpretation of what that experience looks like. Like, we can still have the MMO, and we can like whatever, we can pivot and turn it into a MOBA. And as long as the economic hooks are there and we're getting more users and more users are buying more assets, then we're good, right? Then that's great. That's as long as we get to that desired outcome, and we're all feeling good, and the data is showing that that's a good path, then that's what we're gonna do.
I think
But
that's
yeah,
one of the
Axie Mobile would be sick. Yeah, sorry, Jace.
No, I was thinking that's kind of what I like about the style of dev we're going with, right? Like Atia's Legacy first playtest took a while because it was like the literal first one. We had to build it from the ground up. But now we're
Yeah,
on like these next playtest loops, like the core foundations in place, so we can obviously like validate certain things we want to validate, and hopefully it turns into like a success every single time, and it continues to build on what we're building right now. One of the things that I really liked, and you both touched upon this, is kind of like what the user cap right now or player count is for games like EVE Online and Albion
Mhm.
Online, and it's really not that high when you think of it. Like I think a lot of people might think it's huge, but realistically it's like 5,000 players a month
Yeah,
ish, so between 5 and 10k. But one of the things that I really wanted to just like highlight, because people went there, we actually showcased Atia's Legacy playtest 1 build in London last week, and the art was one of the key hooks that got into it. But what I loved, right, and I wish I could have like videoed this scene in my head, but there was this guy, he saw Atia's Legacy, he then rang his daughter at the event, and Chewy's there, Chewy's in the chat, so he can probably back me up on this. He rang his daughter in the event to show her the game just because of the visual element. And I think that's one of the things you can't
yeah,
really do with like EVE Online, or you can
yeah,
do like, because it's so like in-depth economics wise, Atia's Legacy can have this front of like very, very easy to pick up and play, but have this extreme depth for the people that really, really want to dive into, like you said, that late game, and especially that like war or combat element. So that's one of the big things I just really wanted to highlight, because like until you see it in person, you don't like I almost like can avoid. Do you know what I mean? And we love the community in the chat, but like this has potential to go a lot wider and attracting more players, which increases the like what's the word, like liveliness of that open world when we eventually get to that stage.
Yeah,
yeah,
and our playtest 1 feedback, the highest rated part of the game was graphics and visuals, right? So clearly people really like the visuals.
yeah. Shout out to the art team. We'll send them the snippet. Uh, but yeah, and then to that point, one of the big things is that, like, let's say we all here are, this is actually the EVE Online town hall, and we're like, hey, actually, we want to get people and their daughters to be excited about the EVE Online gameplay, and like we even changed the whole art style to be like fun and cute. Because they're a Web2 game, there's no real way to have that guy's daughter play EVE Online and contribute and be a part of that whole thing, because there's like, even if you play EVE Online right now from the beginning, you have to like go through this whole Fatu early gameplay to onboard to the whole core game. But if you're just someone who wants to come in and do some things and some casual gameplay, you're not part of that overall economy. But we don't have that problem. We have the joys of Web3, where it's like, hey, like, I want to play the Atia's Legacy fishing mode. Fishing is a fun example where it's like, cool, great, and that can exist either on a standalone app or on the same app, and that all fits in together, because that guy's daughter's fish can now contribute to his inventory and to his guild and all of that jazz. And that I think is like a really cool loop and something we didn't have for Origins. We had that a little bit for Classic with Classic PVE, but obviously the macro is a lot different there for why people were playing, like why kids were playing, Classic PVE. Where even there, like when you have SLP, the economy is quite linear, right? It's like I just need to get SLP, and that's it. Whatever I can do to get the most amount of SLP, and it's a linear one-to-one gameplay to earning. With MMOs or even MMO-like systems where the economies are a little more complex, it's not just SLP. It's fish, it's ore, it's equipment, it's all these things of how people of all ages and all like lifestyle choices can contribute. It's like maybe it's fashion points for the fashion show, and you get cool ribbons. And those are all things that we want to explore and to open up. And yeah, get more users. Everyone can play Axie again.
Excited. I'm very, very excited. Like there's a lot of like you said, like width we can go with features when it comes to like farming. I'm just gonna say stuff like farming, homestead, fishing. But like I said, they're cool, but I don't think they're going to be the sole reason to retain players. So that's why it comes all back around to like validating that core end gameplay loop, and especially the war side of things, because adding that layer of risk, I'm very favorable of, as long as there's a way for me to almost like protect at some cost. Sometimes you can put like an insurance up for certain items, so you keep some items or you keep certain things. That's just my own personal view, really. But I don't want to get biased. I just don't like essentially loss aversion. I don't like to lose everything. If I can do something to protect at least some things, I'm usually play like that style.
No, for sure. Like I've worked in casual free to play for a large percentage of my life, and you'd be surprised on how much revenue is just generated from hey, I'm playing Candy Crush and I'm out of moves. Here's $1 for 3 more moves, and that just makes more money than a lot of small countries. So like loss aversion is a real impactor here in a real economy, like juicer for sure.
On the other side of the table, though, I love the feeling of making somebody else lose their stuff. and that is a very big motivator for me.
I don't want to face you 1v1 anymore. We can. I don't like this.
I get what you mean though, because that's the whole point of PvP, right? That's why people play like first-person shooters, to beat the other person. Like there isn't like a middle ground. Yeah. So okay, noted. Don't play Shade. Okay, sounds good.
you always want him in your corner. He's the enforcer.
What would it look like? Obviously we said like PvP and PvE, but are we talking? And obviously, what with the first playtest, we've almost like on the step to validating this like squad-based mechanic, right, in an MMORPG setting. So what would it look like with like almost like groups, teams, guilds? Like, do you know, like playing as a squad of other players as well? Like, how does that like? Essentially, how does that looking in the late game combat or war element that we're kind of ideating?
Yeah, for sure. And so that's what we're actively working on, a few different iterations on, or we have been for a while, seeing what like feels good and plays good internally. Obviously, if playtest 1 was just you with 1 Axie and 4 skills, that would be cool and a little different. But we really wanted the idea of like you have your squad, you have different gear, you have some tanks, DPS, support, healers. But we all wanted to unblock having like parties, squads of 3, 4, 5 humans controlling Axies, and then the gameplay would have to change a little bit for that. So not like drastically, like just some like number tweaking, some like hitbox, and like move speed, and some like skills that we need to be tweaking for that to make sense. The other thing is like, do we want 3 squads of 5 Axies rolling up in a dungeon? Maybe not. It looks a little crowded. Is there interesting ways to get around that? So those are the kind of things that we're iterating internally right now for like, what does that look like? Because obviously we want party gameplay. How do all of those pieces kind of fit in? We're maybe 50% of the way done to kind of a good conclusion on what that looks like. But when we get to a cool internal demo, I definitely want to share it with the community to see like, all right, cool, this is what it looks like. I have my party of cool pacifists that is trying to just like farm some mobs in this dungeon. Shade has his like party of angry face punchers, and then like let's see what happens when we're all kind of in the same instance in the same zone. Um, and then is that interesting? Is that exciting? Is it boring? Like we don't want it to be that like we hype up all of this like end game economic things and it just turns it to be some sort of like auto battler where you're just kind of watching 10 Axies poking each other for 5 minutes. So we want to make sure that that also stays interesting. Uh, yeah, we'll have more to show about that soon.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's one of the big things is like toy bits you mentioned about the pandemic and how play to earn, and like that's quite a deep conversation to have. But I think one of the things on your question was highlighting some people just want to escape reality and play for few minutes every day. And as like working with game developers, you can design things for players to go in a certain direction, but you can never like predict how they're always going to end up playing late game. An example of this,
Yeah.
right, is a game called Valheim. So open world survival game. Some people don't complete the bosses, don't try and progress further. They literally just build like homesteads and almost like RPing on these servers. So that's, I think, with Atia's legacy, like we have this combat system that we're going to be testing, obviously into playtest 2, but the breadth of those features can be for essentially anyone. You can come fish, farm. We'll have those features in place. It's just that late game right now. So I just wanted to call out that comment because I think it was really insightful. That, in other words, with Atia's legacy, we're trying to attract different types of players, but unifying them in this experience. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I always think about like the GTA Online RP stuff, and I'm like, no way. Rockstar was like, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have all these people do this. So yeah, the joys of giving more tools just can have the community really, the world is their oyster. The Lunasia is their oyster, which is where we want to get to.
Yeah, awesome,
Cool.
awesome. Cool. We got like 12 minutes. That's like flown by. Wow, that's almost an hour. So should we? Is there any other talking points you want to like disclose, discuss? Any leaks we can drop, or is there any questions from the community? I know we've been doing a bit of back and forth, but I just want to make sure everyone's covered really.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty good on mine. There's a outside of what we're talking about. There's a few other angles of this that we've been kind of cooking, and it's pretty early. But yeah, like I think to your point, like we want to validate this elder game loop ASAP, but like just what you were saying before, we also want to validate can we build cool experiences that people want to hang out in and have it be a third place for them. That is another separate line of development that we're a little early on, but we want to get out to pretty soon.
Sweet. All right, I'll jump into some questions then. Just as we got like 10 minutes. So Japster, you're in the chat. You could have just asked. Would we have some experiences that don't require grinding away for hours for the more casual players?
Yeah, for sure. We want to. We're trying to go as high TAM, high targetable, addressable market as possible. So once we kind of figure out again this end game loop, we're going to ship a few of these kind of more casual or lifestyle experiences, and then people can test out that.
Yeah, that'll be a bit easier to tweak, right? Because once we've got that end game kind of down, we can then the way to get to the end game can be per different, like essentially you'd be able to play the game as you want to play the game and progress to get to that end game as you'd like. So that makes sense. One of the Dark Messiah is very keen to find out if there's going to be a PC version coming for the next playtest.
Yeah, that's a good question. So one big thing we really wanted to nail down, and this is like we're gonna go behind the scenes, behind the curtain, from me. There exists something in mobile MMO space where if you've played mobile MMOs, they're all either ports of PC MMOs or they're like auto combat, auto progress MMOs, and they're not very good. Like I don't know, maybe people like mobile MMOs. Um, but there exists a world where once if Atia becomes a PC MMO, now the comps and the comparisons for what Atia's can and should be will be against a lot bigger games with a lot more resources and a lot of, more specifically, years of head start against us. So for the playtest, maybe we could do it. Like we can like roll out like a PC build just for like the ease of use for people. But I worry, like, just for, whatever, the general discourse of people looking at Axie from the outside being like, oh, this is a PC MMO in 2025, it looks like a mobile MMO, and you're like, yeah, it is. So that I'm there's some like branding, I think I'm a little, I want to be cognizant of.
Yeah, that makes sense. So essentially, we're building this to be like mobile first, but you'll be able to play it eventually on. Well, I say eventually. Like I played the first playtest on a closed Mac build. Like we have that capacity. It's
Yeah.
just obviously it wasn't as like essentially like dev tested to be released. That's probably one of the big things.
Yeah,
so yeah,
and most mobile games, right? Like you can play emulators on your PC like pretty easy once the game's kind of fully out. So that will be like something we will at least unofficially support when we're closer to like closed beta.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I don't get that question. Sorry, Boba. Will eyes and ears be utilized?
Oh yeah,
but,
the parts. Yeah.
Okay, parts. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry, I thought it was just in general about the playtest. I was like,
yeah.
what?
I see you and I hear you, and you are known and validated, Boba. But yeah, also Axie eyes and ears. We want to make sure that the parts are useful. Like that's like a core pillar and paradigm of Axie that is going to follow through here. Like so the specific reason why we did the 4 skills was just because from like, hey, same thing, we don't want to go all in and develop 100 skills for everything and people be like, nah, this sucks. So now that we've kind of validated that like people kind of enjoy, so and that's also kind of the question right now. The feedback for like the Axie part utility in the playtest 1 was pretty mixed. Some people were like, yeah, that's great, like this is cool, like I feel like the skills have strong impact, and quite a few people were like, nah, like I don't like this equipment weapon system, it is devaluing the importance of my parts, like my specific part like configuration. And that's going to be a balance, like especially after running Origins and even Classic for the last few years, where there's always going to be this spectrum of only parts matter or only runes and charms matter, and finding that sweet spot is going to be a never-ending tuning game. So I another behind the scenes is I specifically don't want to get too in the weeds for what that tuning looks like, and I want to focus more on kind of these higher, broader stroke gameplay loops. Because yeah, we'll spend the rest of the next 5 to 10 years finding like the right balance of like OP eyes versus OP mouths. So anyways, it is coming for sure. And when the game becomes ready for broader adoption, for more people to play with their Axies, those parts are going to have a lot of high utility. But just for the next few months, as we're like testing out these things, we're probably like, so anyways, don't expect eyes and ears to have a utility for playtest 2. But they will in the full game. I promise you that.
Nice. Good. I think it's one of the big things is like setting expectations, right? Like the next playtest won't be like everything in, like that's not how game dev works. So that makes a lot of sense.
Unless if you want to apply and work with us too, because we could always use some more devs.
I like it. Cool. We've got 5 minutes. I'm gonna do like quick fire questions. Try and get as many as we can. Okay, so Psychop has asked, will the next playtest also be locked to only Mystic holders? Is there going to be a way for non-whales to get access?
Short answer, no. We were going to expand it to more people and also more NFT collections. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Yeah, and we did open it up outside of that anyway for the playtest 1, but yeah, we will be getting more people in. ET, I'm going to save your question right until the very end because it's the one everyone wants to know. So I'll get back to that. Souls Always Sun has asked, is there any thoughts on controller support?
Yeah, that's a really fun one. Yeah, that will be something we're probably going to support. Not for playtest 2, but like controller, like Bluetooth controller to your phone support, or just like I assume that's what that question is talking about. To which that'll have to wait for the full build for the full game.
Yeah.
Like,
Also, spoiler, you can map it by yourself because I played on my phone and I've got one of those backbones where you can actually custom map the
yeah,
keys to the touchscreen. And so I'd say yes, but obviously there might be a little bit of a technical setup there.
yeah. It depends on what hardware you're using.
Asher has asked, is there going to be a resolution option for the next playtest that I can change whilst playing?
I assume they want less resolution. We haven't explored that. We really like when your phones are heaters, so I don't want to ruin that feature. But yeah, we actually, I'll write that down. I think we could do that.
Winter's coming. Winter's coming. We need to be
Yeah,
warm.
winter in the Philippines doesn't get that cold though, so and it's also not the same time as us. Uh, Performance reduction.
Yeah, Hibernarium has asked, can we expect PC version for next playtest? We kind of covered that already. So mobile first, but there will be potential PC builds at certain releases.
Yeah, if absolutely everyone and their mom is asking for PC build, like we can probably do it for the next playtest. But again, want to make that more the exception than the rule.
Nice, yeah. So mobile first. Chewy's asked, have you considered inviting any testers outside of the Ronin ecosystem?
Yeah, actually, very good question. Yeah, so Geo is actually like in the DMs of everyone in the universe, and we do have quite a few people that are either new to Ronin or have heard of Axie from a distance and are kind of ready to give some feedback because yeah, we want to make sure whales of all colors can come here and play Atia's Legacy. Yeah,
nice.
we're focusing on that.
And that's also the point of like IRL events, right? So we can actually showcase this game to people who may not even be crypto native. That's the whole point of attracting traditional players to there. So we'll definitely do that. Right, 2 minutes. Right, I'd say we've got time for one question, and then I can do a brief little summary, and then obviously we've got to get back to the rest. Oh, this one's a good one. Okay, I'll do 2 questions. Sorry. Martin. So in Atia's Legacy playtests, any class could equip any item, and skills were tied to the weapon rather than the class. Will it stay that way, or is there a future redesign planned for the class and weapon systems?
Yeah, good question. So the scope for playtest 2 won't have that in it, but we are deep in making sure that is the case. Like we want to make sure. Again, this is similar to the part conversation, where just like in Origins and other games, you have this this spectrum of you have parts and classes and runes and charms and all these things, and the sliding scale for which has more and more importance versus the other, especially when all of them are NFT collections. That is something we know we are going to do, and right now the sliding scale for classes is at a 0, and that will be greater than 0 in the coming months. And so stuff like that for both class and parts, we have a bunch of ideas, but obviously a lot of people have a lot of thoughts on what that could be. So leaving feedback on that, it would be pretty useful.
Awesome. How are you both for time? We've just approached, so I just want to make sure.
I'm good for a few over. I can delay my next call.
Few minutes. All right, like 2 questions. Like one, Shade, this one might come to you as well. This is going to be asking about land utility for Atia's Legacy, specifically when. Obviously, we can kind of go into a little bit about what we're thinking there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, this question plays into Atia's Legacy a little bit too, right? Obviously, land is a huge part of our ecosystem, and we want that in Atia's Legacy eventually, right? It's not going to be in playtest 2, not playtest 3, probably not 4. But we've hinted at a lot of different types of utility. With land in Atia's Legacy. I think Jiho and Trung have in the past hinted at dungeons, right? User generated dungeons and things like that. Those are things we're still exploring and thinking about. And admittedly, land is probably a little bit further away in Atia's Legacy. However, we are currently thinking about ways that we can experiment with land and validate some ideas with land on app.axie, right? So imagine, having some light land utility on app.axie as a way for us and our team to validate or test some ideas around land, right? Things like territory war or whatever, right? So those are ideas we're thinking of now to sort of get progress on land as we wait for land utility in Atia's legacy.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's good to just kind of cover some of the questions that the community are coming from, and even though, like they said, they may not be right now, but there's definitely in the work. So, okay,
Yeah.
One last question. ET, we're going to you. How do I even say it? I should be clipping this better. When is playtest 2 planned?
Yeah, so we're heads down into it. We're targeting Q1. We're specifically targeting mid to late Q1. The scope of playtest 2, because of this end game, is going to be constantly kind of in flux, and we really want to get more people's opinions in the call here to see how much bigger or how much smaller it should be. But yeah, we're shooting for after Christmas. We're gonna go pretty heads down and locking it up, and hopefully people can play it. Yeah, mid Q1. But yeah, a lot of questions still up in the air for that. So we'll stay tuned, and I'll give you guys a better ETA when I get it.
Awesome, thank you. That's why I don't know if you're going to throw a date out, and I was there like, I'm about to find out some stuff too. But no, that makes sense. I think we want to like balance expectations. We don't want to overhype things. Like this will take a while, but it won't take like you said. We're not building from the ground up anymore. We're building actually the fun next layer that we want to validate, which is more focused around the combat end game. Awesome. I think we're going to probably wrap it up there. I know more questions are coming in. If there is more questions, chat, we'll get around to them, answering them post AMA. I just want to be very, very cautious of everybody's time. So yeah, no, thank you everyone for coming today, and I really appreciate yourselves, Shade, Cruz, and Jatsta for coming up, but also the community for coming along. Like I think I really enjoy these style of kind of AMAs, even though we do need to think of a new name for this because it's kind of not an AMA. But no, yeah, and hopefully we're aligned on what's going to be coming to Atia's legacy for playtest 2. Do you two want to any last minute potential leaks or anything you want to highlight to the community before we wrap it up?
Hey, you got any leaks? I should have prepped some leaks.
I don't. Not today.
Oh, I have one leak. We're heads down on integrating the next big boss for playtest 2. So maybe we can show some pictures for that in a bit. But it's pretty hype. It's gonna play pretty sick. It's not another peacock, so that'll be hype.
I definitely shouldn't have asked that because now I want to see it, and I don't know what it is either. So I'm completely blind, like the community is. I'm like, what is this?
That's why we don't invite you
okay.
to meetings, Jase, so you can be also surprised at the same time.
I know I go in blind every time. Like when I ask for a leak, I don't know what you're dropping. So, but no, okay,
good. Yeah,
awesome.
Cool. Thanks,
sweet.
Appreciate the. Yeah.
Cool. All right, thank you everybody, and until next time, we'll see you and talk about anything to do with Atia's legacy and Axie Infinity, and yeah. So thank you everybody for coming. Cheers.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.